there, this is Sumner, Healey, the land pioneer. I sell land on the internet. I also teach people how to start land investing businesses themselves. In this video, I'm going to show you guys exactly how the land investing business works, really from cradle to grave, A to Z. How do we pick a market, and then what happens from there? How do we close the deals? I'm going to cover all the minutia. And the goal is, by watching this video, you could really have kind of like a junior level or like a 101 entry level understanding of the full cycle of land investing. And this would really be enough to get you up and running. If you wanted to go start buying land and reselling it tomorrow, you could do it by watching this video. This is truthfully what I wish I had when I first started, because there was a lot of information out there in terms of land investing, but it was incredibly fragmented. So there'd be these little gaps in between where I'd be like, well, what's a notary close? And do I need a title company? And questions like this kept on coming up. So without further ado, I hope this video helps. I'm gonna take you guys on my computer and we're gonna go through and look at the actual nitty gritty of how land investing works as a business model. Okay guys, so now we are in my computer and I'm going to run you guys down through a really simple workflow that's going to show you the entire process of really what makes this business tick, right? And I'm going to have videos that will go deeper into each point, so don't worry. If you get hung up on one of these, drop a comment down below and I will gladly expand upon the idea. And we can go much deeper, but for this video we're going to keep it relatively high level and we're just going to cover the entire gamut of how this business operates. So really at the top of the funnel we have market research. This is the foundational element of our entire business, right? There's well over 3,000 counties in the US. There's a lot of vacant land in this country, and not all of them are created equal in terms of quality for inventory, right? Really our business is to go out there and find counties that have an abundance of open space, right? The difference of buying land in New York City versus San Bernardino, California, it's going to be radically different, right? There's just a lot more supply in San Bernardino than there is in New York City. And so we need to find places where we have enough supply of open land to not get weeded out by the big boys, right? If we go to New York City, there's going to be big time developers. There's going to be probably holding companies that just want to hold that vacant land as a way to kind of put their cash into it and just bank on it. And so it's going to be really difficult to acquire inventory at a rate that isn't incredibly inflated and is kind of like future paced out. In New York City, if you go to buy land there today, you're probably paying 2030 or 2040 prices because the people that own it, they know the value of the land. You go out to San Bernardino County, your lead pool is much bigger, and there's just a lot more open space there. So there's a lot more potential to find owners who say, yeah, you know what, I am relatively motivated to let this property go. So that's the very first point. We need to find places that have an abundance of open space, an abundance of vacant land. But on the flip side of that spectrum, we can't just have a ton of vacant land. We need a market that also has some level of demand from people coming into the market and saying, hey, I want to own land as an end user. So we need that inventory as someone that's going to go flip the land. On the flip side, we also need someone to come in and say, yeah, I do want to buy land in XYZ county. And there's a lot of different ways we can kind of suss out, hey, this place actually has real supply to go after. And then on the flip side, we can pretty quickly suss out this market has genuine interest. Tools like Redfin and Zillow do a really good job to give us just a quick glimpse in terms of days on market and overall demand. So that's a good way to kind of reverse engineer if a market truly has interested participants that are coming in to buy land. But that's going to be our bedrock. That's where we're going to start. So we're going to need to weed through the 3,200 plus counties in the US, find the creme de la creme, find the ones where our marketing dollars are going to go the furthest, and we can get the biggest yield from. The next part is we need to go and actually aggregate the data. We need to go find the ownership records and pull that data. Whether you're cold calling, you're doing direct mail, you're doing like cold emails, which I've done that before, believe it or not, and I have generated a few deals. It's not a strategy that I implement incredibly often, but it is something that you could do. You need the ownership record. Who owns the property? How many people own it? Is it one person? How is it vested? Is it in an LLC? And what's their mailing address? Really, my business kind of lives and dies by direct mail. The cost per deal is bar none the most effective and really cheapest at the end of the day relative to cold calling, relative to cold email. I've just found that direct mail has the best overall cost per deal. I've also noticed that direct mail is just really easy to scale relative to other marketing channels. So direct mail is what we're going to focus on here. When it comes to aggregating the data, there's really three different data providers that I look at. There's a ton more out there, but the three bread and butter in my book are going to be Data Tree by First American, bar none, that's my favorite. Then you've got RealQuest and PropStream. PropStream in my book is kind of bottom of the list. Yes, it's cost effective, but I found the quality of the data to be pretty horrendous. The skip tracing function on there is terrible, and I think the actual tools in terms of mapping out properties and doing further due diligence is lackluster. So Data Tree is the winner in my book. RealQuest is great. I don't have a ton of experience with them. PropStream's okay if you're just getting started, but you'll quickly graduate beyond it. So now we've aggregated the data, we've gone to the data provider, we've pulled the data, we've purchased it. Now we need to clean and price the data. So by cleaning the data, we just mean let's remove all the duplicates. Let's remove the oddball properties that are, a fraction of a tenth of an acre, or the properties that are in swampland. Like, let's get the junk out of there. Let's actually ensure that the stuff that we're going to spend our marketing dollars on is stuff that we actually want to buy. And then the second point is we need to go in and we actually need to go and put a price to our offer. Really, everything that we do here is we're liquidity providers, right? We go out there and we give essentially unsolicited offers to people and say, hey, I can provide liquidity to you right now if you want it. If you want to get rid of your property, I'll buy it. And here's a price that I'll buy it for. You don't need to haggle with me. You don't need to make it confusing. There's not going to be a lot of back and forth. This is a low friction sale. But I need to ensure that the prices that I'm actually throwing out there on my offers are decent and would be fair for the party receiving them and would be fair for me as the guy that actually has to pull out the cash to buy it. In the land investing space, there's a lot of different approaches in terms of what you'd price your offers at. A lot of it's contextual, right? It's going to depend on the market that you're in. It's going to depend on your own business model. For me, a general rule of thumb, and this is a huge spread, is going to be between 10 and 50% of market value. So if a property is worth $50,000, maybe you're going to offer $5,000. You're going to have to send a lot of mail to compensate to actually get any accepted offers at that low of a price point. But it might be more realistic to offer, $25,000. But we need to be mindful of, how liquid is that market? Because in a lot of instances, the more rural counties that I work in, you need to be well beneath the market value. So if the market value is $50,000, for me to get that property moved in a relatively short amount of time, call it 90 to 120 days, I should be listing my property at $30,000 to $40,000, which really means in that instance, I'm going to have to be closer to like that 10 to 20% of market value. And so you need to figure out what your realistic price is going to be. But if you're in a market where there's 2 or 3 property sales per day in that county, it's very realistic that you could come in and actually bring your product to market at that full retail value or very close to it. And if you've got great marketing, you should be kind of top of the list and you should be able to move your property relatively quickly. That's a point that we'll dive into in future videos because there's a lot that goes into pricing data. But for now, just know, hey, you're going to pull the data, you're going to clean it, and then you're going to price it. The next thing you're going to do is merge your data with your offer letter. So for me, I use a 2-page offer letter. First one is just some very generic, well, I wouldn't call it generic, but basic marketing copy, an introduction on who we are, and then it's kind of like a reverse sell in terms of, hey, you maybe shouldn't take this offer, but if you would take this offer, this is why it would make sense, is kind of how we frame the sales copy and that initial piece of the letter. And then the second page is a purchase agreement. You just want to make sure that you've got merge field set up in there so it merges in the property owner's name, merges in your offer price, things like that. The next is print and mail your offers. I do not recommend doing this in-house. Whatever you do, be sure to delegate and outsource this task. This is not worth doing in-house unless you reach a certain scale. It can be marginally more cost effective if you have like commercial grade printing equipment and you can bring in help. Then it will make sense and you can get it, in that 30 cent per letter range. But if you go retail and you use one of these bigger print and mail companies, you'll pay about 45 to 60 cents per letter. And when you're first starting out, it's well worth it. Leverage their services, leverage their expertise. A lot of times they can kind of walk you through what's going to be, a good font to use, how to format your letters. They can be really, really, it's a big value add. And so I have no problem paying them. In my business, I still use these print and mail companies. And once you get to a certain level of volume, you can negotiate discounted rates. So right now I pay in like the low 40 cent range. When I first started, I was paying, gosh darn near like 70 cents. And so it does go down a little bit cheaper as you start, just sending out in bigger quantities. But eventually it does make sense to bring that in-house. Anyways, the next step, as you guys can see, I'm a little passionate about this stuff. I can get sidetracked. The next step here is very simple. Field the inbound inquiries, right? Your mail goes out, 7 to 14 days elapse, and the phone is going to start ringing. You're going to start getting people that said, hey, what the heck is this? Some people saying, hey, F you. Some people saying, thank God, I really want to take a vacation. I appreciate this. So you get these inbound inquiries. They're going to come to you in 3 different channels. You're going to have phone calls. You're going to have people that just send back the signed purchase agreement. And then you're going to have people that email you with either questions or they'll email you a scanned copy of the purchase agreement. In most instances, the more common channel is going to be through phone, especially as you get into higher priced properties. It just makes sense that people are going to want to make sure that you're actually a legitimate human being before they send a purchase agreement for a $40,000 piece of land. So phone is going to be most common. And phone, in my opinion, is the best form of communication. I can relay who I am through the phone. I can understand some more context on the property. Potentially, I can use that phone call if I need to renegotiate, if there's some material facts about the land that I just didn't know going into it. So a phone call is my preferred method. From there, we're going to receive these inbound inquiries. We're going to receive people saying, hey, yes, I do want to sell. And so we've got these accepted agreements. From there, we need to go and do our due diligence on these accepted offers. Right? Just because someone accepted the offer doesn't mean that we have accepted the offer. And so we need to go through and actually confirm a few things. At a high level, it's going to look like confirming access to the property. Does it have legal access, right? Can we actually get to the property legally without cutting through someone else's property? Does it have physical access? So let's say you can get to the property legally, but you have to drive up a steep, rutted out road at a 20-degree incline. That's going to be really tricky to physically access the land. And so we want to confirm those first 2 points because that'll make or break any piece of land. The second one is topography. So once you're actually on the parcel, you've accessed it, what's the topography of the land? Is it in a swamp, a ravine? Is it on the edge of a cliff? Is it in a valley? And so we want to figure out, really, ultimately at the core of it, is the land developable? Can you actually develop the land? That is going to be kind of the whole thrust of it. And if you can develop the land, well, how much of the land can be developed? And then beyond that, what's the scenery? What's the topography like? Is it mountainous? Is it wooded? And so answering those questions is going to go a long way. And this can be something that can really drive up the value of the property if you have topography that is sought after. It could also really hinder the property. More times than not, it's going to hinder the property. When you're first starting out, I recommend going after the simple stuff. The flat, just very basic land. It's kind of like a little patch, a little square. It's got good road frontage. That's going to be a good place to start. The third point is utilities. So again, and now that we know that the main goal of someone buying a piece of land in most cases is going to be to develop it, there are some recreational use cases, but to be honest, they're few and far between. Most people, whether they do it or not, they have some underlying intention to say, I want to do something in terms of building on this land. So utilities are going to be important, right? Does it already have septic on it? Or is it, close enough to the city where it's going to have sewer? Does it have electric? Can it even get electric if it doesn't? Things along those lines. So answering those questions. In most cases, utilities are not going to be entirely set up for the pieces of land that we buy. Usually you'll have like electric, but you won't have anything else. Or occasionally we just had a deal in North Carolina where it already had septic and a well installed on it. But those are typically less common. And then the very last point is market value. So again, we had our kind of hypothesis of what market value was. Now we can go closer and actually look at this property and comp it out versus what's sold versus what's listed for the same acreage range within the same area. And so we just want to ensure that our initial hypothesis for market value was accurate. So if everything checks out there, well, hey, we've got ourselves a deal. The next thing is, how do we actually transfer title? How do we get ourselves as the owner? And how can we go and actually get this thing listed so we can sell it? So we've got two options. This is a bit of a fork in the road. You've got what's known as a notary close, which I'll explain, and then you've got a title company or closing attorney. Now, most people are familiar with the latter. It's going to cost a little bit, but you'll get title insurance, which means that they will go through and insure the chain of title. They do some decent due diligence as well. When you're first starting out, they'll catch some potential chain of title issues that you may have not caught yourself. Title companies and closing attorneys are something that's a love-hate relationship. I think they're worthwhile if you're going after anything that's beyond the $5,000 to $10,000 price range. I think anything beneath that, you don't really need them unless you're just starting out. If you're just starting out, I say don't go the notary close route. Use a title company, use a closing attorney. They'll hold your hand through the process, and they'll make sure that you don't buy something that's got kind of a haunted past in terms of the chain of title that could come kind of bite you in the ass down the line. Now, on the flip side, if you get savvy enough with doing title searches, you can look into doing a notary close. It's very simple. You just send out a notary to the current owner, get them to sign the new deed. They'll have that signature notarized. You go and get it recorded with the county, and you're good to go. In total, a notary close should cost you about $40 to $60, where a title company may cost you $800 to $1,500 to $2,000 in some cases, right? So the costs are drastically different, but a notary close is not for the faint of heart when you're first getting started. You also don't get escrow services with notary closes, which for some sellers, they're really going to want an escrow to kind of act as an intermediary, a third party in between you guys, because no matter how nice, how gracious you are, how forthright you are, some sellers just aren't going to trust you. And it's okay. They got an unsolicited offer. And so you can see why they might be a little bit cautious. Most people are willing to let their guard down at a certain point. But some individuals, they're just a tougher nut to crack. And so they're going to request that you go through a title company. Something that you can negotiate, but in most cases, I'm willing to oblige and go through the process. So at this point, you've gotten it cleared, your name has transferred, it's been recorded, it's yours, you've got yourself a deal. Now it's time to go list the property and flip that dirt. One of our value adds is having the best in class marketing, right? So you've got this property now, don't do what everyone else does and just post it on Zillow or just go and get a realtor to list it for you. No one will treat that piece of land better than you will in regards to marketing. Market the heck out of it. Put it on every single platform known to man. Get the best pictures taken of it. Get drone videos done. Write the most delicious, succulent, beautiful listing description. and give people options. Give them owner finance options. Give them a discounted cash price. Put some sales and marketing behind this thing. I mean, that is really what vacant land as an industry is missing, is sales and marketing. Really real estate in general, but to be more niche, land is probably one of the most illiquid assets in the world, and I think a part of that is because no one knows how to sell the dang thing. And so really do not skip this part. I've got a running joke, and that it's not really a joke, it's actually not that funny, but it's the idea that I really do think you could go and buy just about any piece of land, maybe put a little negotiation, but any piece of land that's listed on the internet right now. You could go and buy it, relist it, get better photos done, list on more platforms, put a better listing description up, maybe offer financing terms, and I think there's probably a 10 to 50% markup that you could have there just by marketing the property better, which is pretty amazing. So if you can couple buying at a discount with better marketing, it doesn't seem that crazy to make a 200, 300, 400, 600, 1,000% return on your money. And you can do that at scale, right? You can go exercise decent amounts of money at once. You could go and put $10, $20, $30,000 into a deal and get those kinds of returns, which is one of the many reasons I live and breathe land. It's pretty darn amazing. So once you list the property, you find a buyer, then you're kind of back at that fork in the road. Are you going to close through a title company, or are you going to do a notary close? For me, in most instances, I'm going to go through a title company. The new buyers will cover title insurance, and really that's it. That's the process. Now, this whole business is incredibly simple, but I'd be lying if I said any bit of it is easy. Just like any business, there's a lot that goes into it. Each one of these steps is like its own division, its own department. And so for us, we've got a team of 3, including myself, that run the Land Pioneer, and we all bust our butt. So don't think for a second that this is necessarily easy, but if you have even an inkling to get started in real estate, I think land is one of the best places you can start. And I really hope videos like this help and are educational. And if one person out there decides to take action because of watching this, well, I'm a happy man. So anyways, guys, this is Sumner Healey at the Land Pioneer. If you've got questions about learning how to start investing in land, you can find us at landinvestors.co. Hope you guys have a great day. We'll talk soon.